Welcome to another episode of Based News Network. I am Punk Revolution Now, aka Kaio, here with Sophie, aka Jonah Varka. Say hi, Sophie.
Hi.
And today we have a very, very special guest. This is Dorian Electra. Please say hi, Dorian Electra.
Hey, y'all, what's up?
Epic. Dorian Slayer.
Dorian Electra actually taught me what a clitoris is.
Iconic.
And actually,
That's a deep reference.
I just learned actually about sodomy too, so...
Amazing. You know, it's just sex ed over here. You know, I'm just teaching. I'm just out here to educate, you know?
Yeah, you're one of the most, educational musicians I can think of. Yeah.
It's just in my blood.
Let's just say Dorian Electra saved Sophie and I's relationship.
What? What is that? Oh, I get it. Okay.
That was what Sodom and Gomorrah did to Sophie and I last. Well, okay, all right, let's go back.
That's what Sodom and Gomorrah does to an MF, you know?
Damn.
Yeah. So everybody, who's listening, if you haven't listened to the new Dorian Electra single, Sodom and Gomorrah, definitely go check it out. I definitely want to just kind of kick off the conversation asking about just that track and kind of what I'm hearing from it. Same with the new song Freak Mode, both extremely, extremely fun and entertaining, pretty much, and also really funny, just kind of like just immediate Dorian Electra classics. Yep. So we're, what I'm hearing, I'm Punk Revolution Now. I love punk. I love hearing distortion, guitars. I'm definitely automatically just hearing that in both these songs, a little bit more distortion, darkness kind of coming through. Is that something that you've been inspired by lately? I guess what is your kind of creative vision right now and influences that inspire you?
Definitely. I mean, I've definitely been into a lot of dark stuff with a lot of guitars. All my new tracks have a bunch of guitar on it. These last two songs, Freak Mode and Sodom and Gomorrah, are about they're very sexual songs. I've just been in the mood to do that and writing from my own perspective and stuff. And yeah, I just also wanted to make a fun song, a party song that people could really actually have a good time to,
Yeah.
Definitely a good party song. Sophie and I actually, and I don't know if this is weird, of a weird comparison, but Sophie and I were kind of getting just a tinge of Britney Spears.
Yeah, I was gonna say that non-binary Britney Spears, but
totally
in a dungeon.
Yeah, if Britney Spears was actually really just took it to the next level with the freakiness, I guess.
Yeah. It was truly epic. Yeah, we really, really like the new song, so.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
And that's why, I feel I'm such a big fan of yours because I love everything you do with the themes of your music, the way you use the internet and history and fedoras, gamers, jokers, everything that speaking as a meme account, a meme or a shit poster, if you will, that's all stuff that I really like. And I also I like the political undertones of your music too, and how you kind of intersect it with all that stuff. I think it's really smart and no one else does it, so
thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that. I mean, for me it's just sort of I have to write about stuff that I find interesting because I get really easily bored. And when I've tried to just write songs that are just one vibe, let me just write about a party or being in love or those things are all valid. Those things are all great. And some of my favorite music is about just those things. But, to me, I'm my brain just can't pay attention. I'll just lose interest when I'm making a song unless there's some other different conceptual thing or visual angle or something else that's funny to me or just activates my brain and stimulates it in some way. And yeah, in college I studied philosophy and history of science, and I used to be really into economics and history and all that stuff. So it's just kind of how how my brain like naturally operates, I think. So I think that's just why, you know, it permeates my music. And I used to make educational music videos like when I graduated from college. Yeah, like classics. You're talking about like the history of the clitoris and stuff like that. And so even though I'm not making like explicitly educational music anymore, it's still sometimes how my brain operates.
Yeah, like I said, I'm learning let's just say Sophie and I learned some tricks from your new song.
Oh my god.
Sorry, okay, all right.
Embarrassing me. Just
all right, well,
no, it's okay.
We're just trolling.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Soph.
Well, I just think that's interesting you say that because I know about your epinomics history stuff. And Kaio, my boyfriend in Punctual now, he studied economics at NYU. And I studied history.
So dope.
It's like an epic.
Let's just say Sophie and I like to get trippy, you know, drink some Bud Light and spend all night talking about society and philosophy.
Yeah.
So I do think I think if you take someone who doesn't understand Dorian Electra, has never listened to Dorian Electra, and then show them like Freak Mode or Sodom and Gomorrah, they'd be like, okay, this is like, you know, an awesome party jam, but you could like, they would just never imagine that like earlier in your career it was more like educational. But like Sophie and I, who have listened through the whole trajectory from beginning to end of the Dorian Electra experience, it actually is like surprisingly cohesive. Like it's not like you've totally diverged. It's like you've you've continued threading, because what Sophie and I were saying, you know, like a lot of these concepts about sexuality and gender, they are very intellectual as well, or they're very like abstract and philosophical as well. They're very like socially conscious, you know? So I guess like, would you say like there is a connection there for you, like with like your kind of like early kind of economics focused kind of, you know, music into music that like is more exploratory of like sexuality and gender?
I mean, politically, I've totally gone away from all of that. This kind of economic stuff that I was doing, that was back when I was basically like out of high school and like brainwashed by my teacher to being libertarian, and now I'm like way on the left. So it's like, you know, politically very different. But like just broadly speaking, like conceptually, I mean, yeah, I do love the idea of taking like a complex concept and then making it accessible through pop music and stuff. That was kind of like my old pitch of what I, you know, how I would think about my work and stuff. And now like I definitely think about things more abstractly. Like I don't think about it like, here's this complex concept I want to boil down for people, but it definitely does impact the way I think about stuff, where I'm like, what do I want to say with this song? Or like, what's like my thesis? And then, you know, I used to think about like songs like an essay, like there's the introduction, and then like your chorus is like your thesis. And then you have like, I forgot what it's called, but there's like the 3/4 of the way through where it's like basically like the bridge of the song. And then you go back to like the conclusion and like wrapping everything together. So I don't know, that's very much like, when I first started writing songs, my brain was, I would literally make an outline like I would for an essay, because that's just how I knew. That's what I knew from school, you know? Yeah. I don't do that as much anymore, but I definitely started out doing that for sure.
I feel like it's a certain kind of brain, honestly. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I'm honestly really interested in this because like, I don't know very many other people who like were interested in and like studied economics in college who are also musicians. Like, I mean, myself and me, I'm sure there's others out there. But like, I guess, and look, I you know, when I was in college, I was also in like a kind of econ cult myself. I was like, you know, with a bunch of Marxists, which is frankly a lot cooler than libertarians. So I'm not going to roast you for that. But yeah, well, you know how it goes. But I was just gonna say though, like, to be entirely fair though, it's just like even if you were like in an ideology that you don't agree with today, it still, I think, demonstrates that you have a brain that's like interested in like, I don't know, like putting together these like big puzzle pieces to try to understand like how the world works. Maybe those puzzle pieces aren't something you agree with today, but it's like still pretty abstract. And like I think what you just described, like writing a song, I think writing a song is exactly that. It's like trying to put a puzzle together. So, and even with
Totally.
like the newer stuff, like you said, maybe you're not taking the same like essay approach. I mean, like Sodom and Gomorrah is literally like a Bible reference. So, which is like
bros out here writing like a treatise.
Yeah. Yeah. So
totally.
I'm
I mean,
listening and learning because I'm not. Well, I was like a classical clarinetist in high school, so there's.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Sophie is low key just like we market ourselves here as like I'm the music critic and Sophie's the memer, but like no, Sophie just like low key quietly is just a better musician than.
That's not true. Thank you.
I mean, all right, you are, but like whatever.
Damn. Yeah, this is like a very feminist podcast, so like I'm in control here, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's so epic. Yeah, like I like speaking from a history standpoint too, like this, like I remember I think I even saw like your like educational videos, like I can't remember where they were posted on YouTube, like I forgot what channel they were on.
Refinery 29, I think.
Yes, Refinery 29. I ate that shit up, like.
Yeah.
I love the fashion one too, like, because I love fashion history, so I thought that was really cool.
Totally. I love fashion history too. I think it's one of my like it's one of my favorite things to just like watch YouTube videos about, because like there's so much interesting like political.
Yes, fashion is super political, like as is everything, of course, but like memes too. But definitely fashion. Like I remember reading like about how during the like World War II, like women would like paint fake stockings on their legs because they couldn't like use nylon because of and I thought that was
like the Great Depression, epic. I think. Yeah, that's so dope.
Yeah, I like your like blend of pirate and like gamer incel, like it's just I feel like that's kind of what you do, is like you just sort of you love like to juxtaposition and like extremes, which is really cool because I like that too a lot.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's like, it's hard to make anything new nowadays, but it definitely is fun to try to come up with like juxtapositions that maybe you haven't seen much of before between like seemingly disparate things, like you said. So and like I love the history of fashion, like there's so much interesting political history, whether that's like the history of gender roles and like the economic structure of like the family and how we consider that, or how like the development of like private property and like capitalism, like how that intertwined with things about gender roles or family, or all this different stuff. It's super interesting to.
We need a Dorian Electra song about Boston marriages.
What is that?
Okay. Well, okay. So back when I used to identify as a lesbian, I'm now bisexual, clearly. So back in the day, like I was obsessed with this stuff, and Boston marriage is like basically like two women who like I'm pretty sure this was like the 1800s. I don't really know too well, but they'd basically like women would get into like essentially like civil partnerships where like they like practice being married, but it'd be like two women, and like it was definitely like gay, and like they would like live with each other and stuff, and like one of them would like dress like a man and like wear like an epic top hat. It was so sick.
Wow, that's so sick. Surprised that I never.
I mean, I feel like I'm probably getting the facts kind of wrong, but it's like essentially that, and it's like kind of awesome. But yeah,
everyone Google it just so we can maintain the Base News Network 100% credibility rating.
Yeah,
so
true.
Google it.
Yeah. Anyway, so. Yeah, like I said, I really like how you just get into like this sort of like all these like epic topics. And
Sophie, have you seen, or maybe Dorian, have you seen the meme that's like Redditors, like, oh yeah, women of Reddit. It's like a Reddit post, like women of Reddit. How, like, what is something that like a gamer, like a lonely gamer, can say to immediately make you like want to have sex with him or something like that? Like a very cringe post. And like I'm just thinking, like I feel like that's the challenge Dorian Electra has taken upon themselves.
Oh, interesting.
Like take the gamer Reddit fedora. I mean, you're doing all sorts of things. It seems like every music video there's like a new like, it's like kind of like a surprise. Like what is Dorian Electra gonna like dive into genre wise, aesthetically this time? It's like, I feel like that's like your mission, is like take some crazy like fedora concept and make it like sexy sometimes.
Yeah.
Totally. I gotta keep it interesting, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Dorian, I guess I'm kind of curious, like, what are like some of your interests today? Because I know like you said that like it sounds like you are someone who's very interested, obviously, in history and politics and economics, and like I know you said like, you know, the way you kind of think about it has changed over time. But like, are you someone who like are you still like engaged with like kind of like reading with like what's going on, or are you kind of like a bit more focused just like strictly on like the music stuff right now?
I mean, I would say like I'm definitely focused on my album and everything right now, but I do always try to stay aware of just like what the current mood of things are, because I feel like, you know, there's like a weird misconception about artists that like, oh, like the best artists like close themselves off from the world and like they just put this thing out that's like been inside of their head, and that's like how they express themselves, and you know that it's this very like hyper individualistic thing. But I feel like my work I always try to think like, first like listen, like what is going on, like what are people talking about, or what are they not talking about, and like what needs to be added to the conversation. And I think of like my work and stuff as part of a dialogue that like adds something to the mix, you know, and like reflects the world around it. So I feel like a lot of my, not so much Sodom and Gomorrah or Freak Mode, but a lot of my upcoming stuff has a lot to do with like examining like fandom and like celebrity culture and
interesting. Like culture.
Yeah, and like parasocial relationships and things like that, because I feel like it's super interesting. Like we're at a place
super interesting.
Yeah, like I feel like we're at a place right now where we live in a like highly secular society where we, you know, but human beings still want some kind of meaning, you know, or like communal storytelling in their lives. And it's not like we have like Roman gods that we use to like, you know, tell moral stories and like help solidify social norms and things like that. You know, we do that through celebrities, you know, like condemning this person for dating that person, or like praising one person, or giving awards, or you know, praise, or like, or chastising and vilifying. You know, it's like that's how we establish like values and norms in our society. And it's sort of like also like celebrities and people like that are modern day idols, you know, and people like literally worship them, you know. And it's really taken the place of religion, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say.
I completely agree. That makes me super excited, because I'm like one of my most like, Kyle, you can attest to this, but I'm like, one of my favorite things is like stan culture, like examining stan culture. I think it's like insanely interesting and emerging. And I mean, maybe the first stands were Jesus stands. No, it goes back further. But like it's I totally agree. Like, because when I was a teenager, I don't know, like not like the modern stan Twitter like wasn't a thing per se, but like I was like super into I was a little monster. Yeah. So like I was out here in the stan wars. Like there were literal wars like going on. Like it felt so like real, so important. Like this was like I don't know, like I'm like a teenage girl from like Minnesota, but it like I don't know, I felt like totally like I don't know, it consumed me. Like it was really all I had, and it was so parasocial, but it wasn't as much as about like I don't know, the like Lady Gaga, even though I love Lady Gaga, it wasn't as much about her. It was a community, and it was like this sense of purpose. Like this is my purpose to get her streams up. It's like, oh god, that's so pathetic. But it was like fun. It was fun, and I like I remember going against the Swifties. There's all the drama. Like it was crazy, and it was so interesting to me. And like if I ever do write a book, like, or like as a quote unquote historian, I would love to look into Stan, like, fandom stuff, like totally like I on an earlier episode I was talking about like John Locke. Do you know what John Locke is? Like Sherlock X John from the show Sherlock, like the
no.
Oh my god, it was a whole thing. But anyway, that was like a big part of my like teenage years. Yeah. But anyway, that's so exciting.
Yeah. I think all of that, like you're talking about your experience in those Stan communities, is so important because, like, I was before the word Stan was being used and before Twitter was invented, I was a huge Stan of a lot of different bands and, you know, was active in, like, forums and YouTube communities and, you know, standing in line at the shows, like, getting there super early before they sound checked and all that.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was, like, that's what inspired me to start making music, was bands like that. So it really... I think also, like, my own experience having formed my identity, you know, in high school and stuff around, like, that fandom, you know, helps me appreciate it when I see, like, kids doing the same thing, you know, today, whether it's with my music or other people's music. And, like, I see the positives, of course, and it's beautiful. I see the community. I obviously also see the negatives, you know, and I see, like, especially just how, like, technology has, like, really ramped it up and made it, feel like this whole other world. But I think, like, it's just important to recognize, like, the human need for purpose and meaning and, like, to be a part of something bigger than yourself is just, like, so innate to us. And, like you're saying, that you had these political battles and wars, you know, that really felt important. Like, you feel like you were doing important work in a community, you know, and, like, that it stood for your values and, like, what was important, especially with something like Lady Gaga versus Taylor Swift back in the day or something like that, you know? And so I feel like it's, you know, we're seeing the same thing today. And then, of course, that same kind of fandom also carries over to politics, too. And because we're also using the same technologies.
The Trumps, the MAGA stands.
We're using the same technologies for those things. So, yeah, I feel like it's something that, you know, I think now we're starting to become a lot more self-aware about our relationship to the internet and how we socialize on there and the kind of communities we build. But I think for, like, the last 10 years, it's sort of been, like, a lot of blind optimism. And only in the past, like, 3 or 4 years have I felt, like, in a more mainstream way, like a more critical, like, maybe this is bad for our mental health, and maybe, you know, and those documentaries, like, what was that one that was Netflix? It was called, like, not The Social Network, because that's the movie.
The movie.
I can't remember, but, like, they did a mainstream movie about that, and obviously after the 2016 election and all that stuff, like, now people are starting to question, like, you know, all these large platforms and the power they have and all this stuff, but I grew up in the era of, like, just unfettered optimism about these platforms like Arab Spring and, like, the internet's going to save us. And even people using the language of, like, the internet democratizes everything. And, like, using the word, like, democratizes and, like, is so loaded because it's, like, it's like, it gives power to the people. Like, it's just, you know, and it, like, assumes that is, like, a good thing built into the language that you're using to describe it, you know? And
Sophie and I was just gonna say, actually, Sophie and I, we had an episode recently where we talked about, and you might be familiar with this, Dorian, like a CDC report that came out, I think it was this year, about increasing depression and suicide rates, especially amongst, like, young women, but across, like, all teens, and that, like, that rise in, like, depression and suicide is very, very strongly correlated with, like, the rise of iPhones and just unfettered access to social media.
And it's not to say, like, social media equals bad.
No, yeah.
Like, I mean, that's literally, like, all I do.
Yeah.
I can't say that because that's all I do on Joan of Arc, of course. But it's,
No, totally. I think
there's no question that it's bad in a way.
And I think
there's just no denying it.
I mean, I think I personally found that it was harmful to me. That's why, like, when I was making my album, I spent a lot of time, like, mostly just not on the internet. Like, I would use YouTube and watch videos and like stuff like that. But I wasn't on social media much at all. And I definitely stopped using Twitter because I just like a long time ago, because I just really don't like the kind of like community that fosters like at all. And yeah, but I think it's like, yes, the social media stuff is bad. I think also another thing that always gets left out of the conversation, though, is like how do like and this is the Marxist thing, but like how do like the material conditions and like economic conditions factor into like this world that we've created? So it's like, it's not just like, oh, like social media equals bad, but it's also like all the other, like the fact that there are like no job prospects for people, the fact that like, getting an education doesn't really mean like you're going to be getting work. So like, what do you have to look forward to? The fact that more people are like living with their parents after school and like all this other stuff, definitely I think factors into it. And same with like when I was examining like incel culture, as well, like people want to blame it on like, oh, it's just because there was a forum called 4chan that created all this bad stuff. It's like, no, it's like, we're looking at like the fallout from like the 2008 housing market crash, and like the fact that destroyed like millennials like job prospects, and like what kind of culture that those economic conditions create. And like that's the same thing where it's like when people want to be like, in times of economic crisis, when people want to be like anti-immigration or something because they're like, well, immigrants are taking all the jobs, or like when they want to be like, well, the reason I can't get laid is because of feminism. It's like all these the scapegoating starts happening. Those are in times of like economic crisis. So yeah, I mean, I think economics is like, it's key to everything, and like economics and like class are just something that always gets left out of the conversation.
It drives history.
It does, and
in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's like, everything's obviously intersectional, but I feel like it's very convenient that it's like people always want to leave that part out of the discussion, when it's like, all we want to be like is all our world's problems would be solved if Netflix would have more like gay sitcoms, and it's like, that's not necessary. That is not true. So, we need to get help. We need to get healthcare first. Let's work on that. So right. It's, but yeah, I don't know. It's all super interesting stuff.
We need a Dorian Electra song called "Phone Equals Bad."
Dorian Electra for president. Wow. Well, I love hearing all that, because I feel so strongly about everything you just said, and Sophie and I definitely think about it and talk about it quite often. Like in our last episode, we talked about, just bringing it back to the news stuff, we talked about the debt ceiling standoff, the deal that's being reached between Democrats and Republicans. And we talked about like how this is like a very intense negotiation where Republicans have a lot of, negotiating power, given that like if there's no, agreement to raise the debt limit, it could result in a gigantic crisis that obviously, Biden as president would take a lot of blame for. And once you get like past all the boring conversations about debt, deficit, whatever, what you're ultimately looking at is just an aggressive, vicious fight for tax cuts, for cutting food stamps. Like, why are Republicans doing all this crazy kissing Donald Trump's ass? Why are they doing all this theater? It's because at the end of the day, what the politics comes down to is really, like you said, like the class, the economics. That really is, I think, a very fundamental part of politics once you get past all the theater and theatrics of Donald Trump and blaming immigrants. So totally on point, totally on point. And also, this is what Dorian, I knew it. I was trying to say, like, people, maybe they hear some party songs. I was thinking like, no. Beneath all that, with Dorian Electra, we've got an intellectual. We can hear it. We're ready. We're ready for. We're really excited for the next album. So that's all we're gonna say.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun. Like with Sodom and Gomorrah, there's like, I think some of my inspirations, like some people have asked me, but it's kind of like hard to sum it up. But I think now, like in a comment, but like I can talk about it here more now. But like it's a little like something fun to talk about with y'all. But like I think some of the inspiration is this is totally random, but like when I was on tour and I was seeing all these like souvenir shops, and I was like traveling around Europe, and I'd be like, okay, I'm in Milan, and then it's like you go to the souvenir shop, and the souvenir shop is like this bizarre, like, let's condense everything iconic or like known about this place and put it onto like a purchasable item. And usually the stuff is never made there. It's all like cheap crap made like probably in like a horrible sweatshop factory or whatever, but it's like you're buying that thing to take home a piece of Rome or like Milan or whatever with you. And also like I didn't go to Pompeii, but I was looking online at like merch or like souvenirs. I keep calling it merch because I'm a musician, but like souvenirs that you could get in Pompeii. And it's like Pompeii was this crazy like tragedy, essentially. Like all these friggin' people died, and it's like people are remembered as like in the positions they were like screaming and dying and like in pain and they're burning or whatever. And like
the gay couple
and like all of that. But like then it's like, but then you can buy that on a keychain. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, it's just so surreal, this idea of, like, commercializing, like, weird tragedies. Like, you can even go to the, like, 9/11 Memorial Museum and buy souvenirs there. Or, like, Chernobyl sells, like merchandise and souvenirs. Like, God. It's super bizarre, like, what becomes like celebrated like long enough in the past or even not that long ago, you know? And it's just like, and like who's making money off of these things? It's super, I don't know, I found that like super interesting, and thinking about like Sodom and Gomorrah as like a tourist destination, you know, was like some of the inspiration for the song, like the biblical cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And also just kind of like the idea that like with all the culture wars stuff that we have going on right now, like it is a form of entertainment for people. Like it riles them up and it gets them mad. But like for both people on the right and left, like if you look at like media coverage and how much it covers like everything, whether it's like pro-trans, anti-trans, you know, pro-gay, anti-gay, like every little thing that happens, like good and bad, you can't deny that it is to some people like a form of entertainment, even if it's like they're horrified by it. But like the way that we consume that media about those things is like similar to how we would consume other forms of entertainment. And in the way like Tucker Carlson talking about something, you know, like it's something that it's juicy, you know, people like some of the first things they're socialized to be like, just the things that people are socialized with are like, you know, boy is blue and girl is pink and whatever. It's like super deep in your mind. Or like, you know, when people are like trying to socialize like your sexuality, like you should be like this and you can't be like that or whatever. So it's like, I think it really like anything regarding gender and sexuality really like gets to people on a deep level and gets them like riled up. So it's I don't know. It's like, I feel like we're in this weird era of like, there's like a theater of like the culture wars happening. And I feel like that's kind of what I wanted to get at a little bit with like the tourists in the Sodom and Gomorrah video that are like taking photos and stuff. They're like, wow, like look at like how like horrible, like sinful this is, but like we can't look away. Like we're going to take photos and we're going to talk about it and we're going to buy the merch. Take a piece of it with them. You know?
Yeah, that's super interesting. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sophie and I deal with the, you know, the culture war, the tribalism, culture war stuff on the internet all the time because it's, you know, obviously Sophie and I, you know, Sophie has a big account on Instagram, posts all different memes. You really, you know, you never know what's gonna set off the like, this, you know, rubs a certain, you know, group of people who identify with like an ideology like the wrong way or whatever, and then it just turns into like, you know, just a mosh pit of like fighting and stuff. And I mean, I think, you know, it kind of goes back to what you were saying with even with like the celebrity stuff, you know, like you know, Sophie and I sometimes when we talk about Taylor Swift, you know, we got to be careful. Because
you know the Swifties,
because it is like a, you know, it's like a religion,
by the
you know,
way,
you don't want to
I love her. I'll just say I think she's great, but
oh well, I'm not even I've not really listened to Taylor Swift that much. I'm not like a self-identified fan. I'm more like interested in Taylor Swift, the like brand, or like the religion,
the socioeconomic
yeah, the
happening, the phenomenon of Taylor Swift.
It is super fascinating. I am also very interested in it.
Yeah, like I'm no hate to the Swifties. I know you're listening.
Base News Network, we're Taylor Swift centrists, you know? we're just trying to, you know, make it just be, you know, chill about it. But, you know, you got to be careful because, you know, like I said, it's like you never know
what will.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Someone off, for better or for worse, and I'm not judging, of course.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I was so scared when I did my Lady Gaga remix. I was really scared at first that, like, the fans were gonna hate it.
The little monsters.
Yeah,
the monsters. But
they loved it.
They loved it. I'm still like involved in the Little Monsters like stan Twitter, like corner of Twitter. Like I don't post in it. I just like I know the main like accounts that like post it. Like I know all the personalities. I know how it works. And everyone was like Oprah. Oh, sorry, I say Oprahing by like. Do you know that like stan Twitter gif of like Oprah where she like stands up out of her chair and like puts her like hands on her face and like she looks super excited.
Maybe
and, like, stands. Sorry, this is very obscure. So this is very. I'll send it to you later. It was very obscure. Like, and like all the stands like use that gif and like. They used it so much that they don't even use the GIF anymore. They just say Oprah. They go like Oprah.
Oh my god!
And, like
that's
basically
amazing.
everyone was Oprahing when the remix like dropped. Like basically, so yeah, like that. Oh god, I'm just like trying to put myself in your shoes. Like that sounds terrifying. Like making a remix of a Lady Gaga. Like Lady Gaga is like, you know.
Yeah.
Like, she's so
iconic,
incredibly famous and iconic. Like. That must be so scary. Like,
I really took it like really seriously. I put so much work into that remix. Like me, Count Baldor, and Chris Priotti. Like we worked so many sessions on it until I felt like it was right. And like I was so relieved when the fans were like so welcoming and so positive. I mean, I saw a lot of comments too that were like, wow, like I wanted to hate this remix, but I'm mad that I can't because it's so good.
That's so annoying. It's like, stop.
But also,
no,
like,
it was. But
I
that's
get it.
Kind of a dub, though.
I get it, though. You know, it's like you have to earn people's like, you know, respect and whatnot. Like I did not take it personally, but it ended up being amazing. And since then, like all the Gaga fans have been awesome.
Like it.
And
when it came out, I also Oprah'd. I really liked it.
Yeah,
a lot. So.
Thanks.
Like, yeah, and I feel like I'm playing it down, but I am like a huge fan of yours. Like, that's so cringe to say, but
thank you. I love that. Well, I'm a fan of yours.
Thank you. Oh my goodness.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, Sophie's been telling me since like the day we've met that Sophie loves your music. So
Dorian Electra, Epic Electra. Well, I remember. Now I'm about to get parasocial.
Go for it. Parasocial. By the way, parasocial is not actually a bad thing. It's actually just a normal thing. It's like it's even like before the internet and everything. Like
parasocial relationship with God.
Literally though. That's like this. I'm reading this amazing book. True. I'm reading this book that's called Celebrity: The History of Fame, and I thought it was going to be like super generic and blah blah blah, but then they really go into it. They're like celebrity culture and like neoliberalism and celebrity culture and like all this amazing stuff. And I'm like, holy shit, it's like super in depth that I did not think they were going to go there, but they did. So
interesting. I would love to read that book.
I'll send you the link. It's really dope.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Well, getting parasocial with it, I remember like finding out that your name is like actually Dorian Electra, like actually like legally, and I thought that was so funny. Like in a good way, of course. Like, damn, this person they were like meant to be like who you are now. Like that's like your birthright. If you were born with that name, like you have to be like.
No, totally. I know.
Don't you think, Kyle?
Yeah.
I do feel like my parents like definitely were like, okay, we're going to give you this name. If you want to do something crazy with it, you have it and you should go for it. And if not, and you just want to like do something very chill, then you don't have to. But like, I also appreciated they gave me like a pretty like gender neutral name. Like my mom had like a male cat named Dorian before me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And yeah, she was like testing the name
it's like
out.
the portrait of Dorian Gray.
Exactly.
So we got like a little bit of Oscar Wilde, which definitely like plays into like the like themes of homosexuality and gender and stuff, and like extravagance and like camp.
And like kind of like dandy, flamboyant.
Oh yeah, you definitely have like a literally flamboyant.
Yeah.
And then the Electra is definitely like, I'm getting like the more like abrasive, like it's also over the top and like energetic and like edgy like side of you too, which is like slutty. It's like you are literally meant to be who you are, which is so cool. Like I think that's awesome. Like I have a generic ass name, like so yeah. I think that's so cool. And like I sometimes I'm like to people like, did you actually know that's their real name? I'm literally like actually, and then I'm like that like nerd emoji. I'm like actually. and everyone's like, what? It's not a stage name. I'm like, no.
No, I know, I'm really lucky. Like, it's really cool, and I feel really grateful that I have like such supportive parents, and like I think everybody's parents like probably try to push them into doing something or like want their kid to do something. And my dad was always like, I want you, like, why don't you try out music, Dorian, and you could be like a rock star. And actually for the longest time I was like, I was like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do that. I want to like go study economics, or like I want to like, whatever. Like I was totally, and like both? My parents did not expect that I was going to be like as like nerdy and like academic as I was in school. 'Cause like as a kid, I like all I did was like watch cartoons. Like I didn't like sports. I didn't play with dolls. Like I kind of didn't do like any of that. And so yeah, I was like super
what
funny.
Cartoons did you watch?
Mostly like Ren and Stimpy was like hugely influential on my brain, because my dad like had me watching that since literally I was an infant, and I think that definitely explains a lot about me.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, and then like honestly my other favorites were SpongeBob and and the Rugrats. Honestly, I really fuck with Rugrats. Those are like my top three for sure.
I'm getting the vibes for sure.
Definitely was always a Nickelodeon kid. Always Nickelodeon.
I was a Nick kid.
I was
period.
Sorry,
like,
I was not
Disney. Was I was a Nick kid too. I was a Cartoon Network kid, but I'm like a little younger, so
yeah. It was Cartoon Network only, like it was like secondarily, like only when there was like nothing else good on Nickelodeon. I mean, I liked, well, also, I did grow up on Looney Tunes. My dad always had that around as well.
Yeah.
But I was always Nickelodeon kid.
That's so epic.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you gave a really awesome kind of overview of the, you really hit like a lot of stuff I find super interesting with the parasocial and, internet chaos. But anything else about like the new album that you kind of want to talk about? Like I'm just so curious. We're so curious. Like, any like cool people you're working with that like you're excited about, or is that like kind of like kind of
on the
DL still?
You don't have to say anything. You can't say.
I'm just so excited like for y'all to hear more of the music, and actually I'm playing LA Pride next week. And and then I'm also doing like a Boiler Room, like I'm playing a live set in July, and I'm going to be playing a couple of new songs there at both of those, so you'll get to hear some of the new stuff.
Where's Boiler Room again? Is that LA or New York?
That one's going to be in New York in July.
We gotta go. We're in New York.
We'll be there.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. It's going to be epic.
Oh my god, that's gonna be epic as hell. Yes. Oh my goodness.
Hi.
Okay, so Dorian's audio cut out when we were looking back through this lol. So yeah,
that was the last question we asked.
That was the last thing we got from them, but it's okay.
So that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, please subscribe to our Patreon, $5.
Patreon.com/BaseNewsNetwork. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.